All right. What I'm going to do now, a couple of you know who you are, have already, Clayton, I don't know if you got any further with yours or not, but I sat and had a talk with Evan on this, and I asked him if he was having any problems with people being able to connect to databases and whatever, and he said yes. His problems were different than the problems we're having. And just to tell you real quick, the problems that his students were having was if they went and they brought up a file, in other words, if they went out, let's say to this quotes thing right here, they could double click on it and they could double click on here and double click on here and they could see everything they've got in there. Controllers, models, etc. They could see all that stuff. But when they brought it up inside of Visual Studio, basically the Solution Explorer was empty and they couldn't get to anything no matter what they tried doing. So like I said, it's new software. He's having problems. I've been having some problems with it. So I said, well, what are you going to do? And he asked me, well, what is your plan? So I told him, and what we decided to do was to pretty much go lockstep with what we were doing. And what I mean is what we did. Good. Thank you for letting him in. What we decided to do was to go over the first 5 chapters and then give a test. Chapter 4 has got a lot of stuff where hopefully if you were having problems before getting stuff to work, hopefully by going through chapter 4, that will alleviate or fix some of the problems. So what I have decided to do is I want to go through the whole thing. We haven't met since Thursday of last week. So what, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, for 5 days. I'm going to go back and I'm going to recreate the MovieQuotes app from start to finish. And when I get done, I'm going to put a completed copy out on GitHub. Now, those of you who are having problems with your database, that's not going to help you much. But I want to show you where we want to get to. All right. Then when we get done with that, we're going to jump right into chapter 4. And chapter 4 is got an example. It's a movie example. It's a different one than the one we're doing, but it's a movie example. And it goes through, as I say in my email, the ASP.NET SQL Server connection in more detail. I tried doing a real simple example that I've written now 3 times and it's worked every time. Some of you have had problems with it. I'm not sure why, but we have to figure out what those problems are and figure them out right away. All right. So when we're the first test that we're going to have will probably be early next week, and it'll be on chapters 1 through 5. And as it says, that's the same way that Mr. Gudmested is doing it. We are meeting at least once a week, he and I, for 15 minutes to 30 minutes to go over how everything in the class is going. All right. Let's see. When I get to the chapter 4 stuff, again, I'm going to go through their in-chapter example. It's a pretty good example. The majority of the chapter goes through and they have you build a movie app. It's not quotes like we're doing, but it's basically setting up movies. They show you how you can create what's called seed data, SEED data, where when the program runs and you run the first migration, you already have data in there. Then towards the end of the chapter, they show how to add another table and basically bring in a foreign key relationship. Now, we have done this kind of thing before, but we have never done it through code. And that's what they're doing in there. So right now, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to build the entire MovieQuotes app from scratch. And then I'm going to put it out onto GitHub. Once we get done with that, we're going to jump right into chapter 4, and we'll go as long as we go today. Whatever we don't finish from chapter 4 today, we will finish that tomorrow. All right. And as far as what we'll do after that, I want to see where we are time-wise. Friday will still be a lab day, but I want to see at the end of the day tomorrow exactly where we are. All right. So again, yeah, I mean, I went in and for those of you, for John and for Clayton, Clayton, I know I gave you that suggestion? You said you tried it and it came up with other errors.
I rebuilt it and now I have no issue. The only question I had though is with the quotes database. Is because I feel like I missed a step and I don't have it even in my code file.
Okay, well, that's kind of what John has too. All right. Because I know, John, with yours, I went and looked and it built some of the stuff, but it didn't appear to build the database. Now, that could be that we had some problems with the migration, and it could be something else. I don't know. That's one of the reasons I want to go over this again today and do it slowly and very hopefully meticulously. So hopefully you can both get to that point. And there's only 4 of you in this class. Michael, I know you said yours worked. And Mason, I have not heard from you yet, so I'm going to be emailing you tonight to see exactly where you stand in this. All right, so again, we're going to run through this. You can start all over. You can grab it from where you were. I'm going to start all over. You might find it best to do the same. I don't know. All right. But the good news is with at least some of your homework, I know like when you build that price quotes app, I believe for chapter 3 that there's no database involved in it. I don't think there's any database involved in any of the stuff for chapters 1 to 3, which is due this weekend. All right. I'm going to ask that if you have not done so, that by the end of the class period tomorrow, you go through and you see if there's any of that homework, not the written test, but if there's any of the homework or the labs that you don't understand, because I'm willing to do 1 or 2 problems together on Thursday, if that'll help people. I want to make sure you're getting this stuff. All right. Okay. So with that said, like I said, I'm going to start all over again from here. If I go through something and something doesn't make sense, please stop me. If by chance you think I'm doing something wrong or, whatever, please stop me. All right. So I'm going to come in here and because I've got a quotes and a quotes too, I'm going to make a new folder that I'm just going to call Movie Quotes. That's going to be the name of my folder, Movie Quotes. All right. Then, as always, I'm going to start up Visual Studio. I'm going to go to create a new project. I'm going to make sure my stuff is all set up here as to C# to Windows and to web. Again, I will just look in here for MVC, which cuts it way down. I want the one with C# and Model View Controller, the one that's right here. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to choose next. I know this is nothing new, but again, I'm just going to call this Movie Quotes App. I'm going to call my solution Movie Quotes Solution. Oops. And I am going to go and my location, I'm going to make sure that it's set on the desktop to Movie Quotes. All right. You look on there, that should make sense. There shouldn't be anything in there we haven't already done. So I'm going to click next. I want to make sure it's set to .6. I do want you to know that there actually is .7 right now. We're working with .6 because it's considered to be the most stable version. If you remember last semester when we worked with the Node package, with Node, I should say, and when we downloaded Node, I asked you to download the LTS or the long-term support version as opposed to the version that was still pretty much in beta. That's what we're doing here by using version 6. All right, for the authentication type, we're going to choose individual accounts. We will configure it for HTTPS. And I think I told you the other day, and I'm saying it again, technically with what we're doing in here, that doesn't matter. That would matter more if we were creating a site and we were going to be putting it out there maybe on a company website where the HTTPS would be more important because we were asking people to log in or give, some kind of personal information. All right, so I'm going to click create again. You already know what happens here. All right, yeah, I'm enjoying Visual Studio. All right, I'm going to close this and it comes in and it comes up with this right here. Again, at least as far as I know, there should be nothing in there that's right there that is new. All right. Okay. So if we do come in and run this, it should say Movie Quotes app up here. Well, up there. There it is. The home page, again, as always, is very simplistic. So is the privacy page. I'm going to do the same stuff I did the other day. Again, we have a register now. We can go in and register for a new account. Notice it says here, use another service to register. We're going to get into that later because you can set it up so that a person can register from either a Google email or from Facebook or from, from Twitter or from something else. We'll talk about that, just not right now. All right. And login assumes that, again, you have set up an account. So I'm going to go back here to home. And just like I did the other day, I'm going to change this a little bit. I showed you this the other day. 100 greatest movie quotes. It was one of those things. All right. The ultimate list. That's where I got this from. The top 100 greatest movie quotes of all time. So I'm going to grab this, copy that to the clipboard. And then in a second, I'm going to grab that. All right. I'm going to stop my run here. I'm going to go over to views, and under home, I'm going to first bring up index, and I'm going to change this around just so it looks a little bit more the way I want it to look. So where it says learn about, I'm going to say these quotes taken from, and I'm going to put that URL in there in a minute, but I'm going to bring this over and paste that in. All right, I'm going to move this over to a couple lines so I'm sure everybody can read it. All right, in fact, I'll move it over to 3 lines there. That should be enough that everybody can read it. And I'm going to change this one right here to the same URL that I just showed you. That is the one that's right here. All right. No, that is not it. I'm sorry. Try that again. That's what I want. Okay. There it is. Now, what I've done so far really and truly should make sense to everybody. Right now, I'm trying to pretty up the homepage. And when I get done with this, I'm going to try to quickly pretty up the privacy page. All right, so let me do a file, save all on that, and then I'm going to run it to make sure that it is looking more the way I want it to look. I didn't say target equal blank. I'm going to do that in a minute. So these quotes taken from, yep. And it should bring that up. It does, so that works. I'm going to close this. All right, and add in here target equals underscore blank. I'm not going to run that again. I think you all know what that means. There's nothing really new there. So that's my home page. All right, I guess I can make it there. It's a little bit bigger so you can see everything. All right, so that one's done. Now let's do the privacy page. All right, and where it says use this page to detail your site's privacy policy, I'm going to say, again, same kind of thing, but I'm going to put in here free privacy policy generator. There it is. And I don't know why, if it came up first before or not. There's a form Swift. I think the one that I used was Termify. It doesn't really matter. Again, we're not really going to generate something in here anyway. But I'm just going to say use this page to detail your company's privacy policy, that's fine. Let's do it here. It's a big URL, but that's okay. And I'll put this page in here. All right, and that should come out fine too, I would think. So we'll save all on this. And I now got this, which should open up in a new tab, and you can see there that it does as I go back and forth. And the other one, I don't remember if I used the blank, but I'll put it in there and double check. So use this page. I didn't. So there's generating your privacy policy. Okay. So let me put the target equal blank there as well. All right, I'm not going to run it again. I would think at least it's going to be fine. Looks like I spelled everything correctly, so. All right, so we're going to close that, and we're going to close this. Okay, so we've got all the stuff set up now, like I said, for the home page. All right, now we're going to come in and we're going to make our model class. I will tell you, just so you see this, because this is what we'll be talking about in chapter 4. I'm going to make a model class the same way that I did it before. So I'm going to right mouse click on here, choose add, choose class. All right, and what do we want to call this class? I'll call it Movie Quotes, one word, capital M and a capital Q. All right. Now, what we're going to do this exactly the way we did it before. And what I mean is I'm going to come in here, and again, remember there's a shortcut here with prop, and then hit tab twice, and it gives you this. But I'm going to set this up as an ID. Then I'm going to copy this down. These are all going to be strings, and they're all going to be different. All right. Now, some people do what I did for you last time, and that is they come in here and say, like, quote, movie. And then the next one would be, quote, text. Oops. And the last one would be, quote, author. Other people say that's too much. Just call it movie and text and author. But a lot of times what ends up happening, what you end up finding is if you've got multiple tables, you might have field names that are either identical or very close to being identical. So I'm letting it know that this goes along with movie quotes. I mean, I could have called it movie quotes movie, movie quotes text, etc. I think what I did was sufficient. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create the constructor. Again, a shortcut is CTOR, and you can see the IntelliSense already picked that up. I don't know why it should have. There it is. So I've got that. So I have now written my class. All right. It's not doing a whole heck of a lot, but that's fine. All right. Now, what I don't want to do here is spend boatloads of time basically reading off my notes to you. So we're going to use the entity framework here. The entity framework is kind of the hallmark of chapter 4 in your book. I talked about what it did before. I talked about how it does it before. So if you're interested in that, you can go back and watch where I did the part 1 of this lecture last week, and you can go take a look at that. All right, but I don't want to just sit there and read off my own notes to you anymore. I don't want to do that. I want us to go on. All right. So what we're going to do next is, and we all should be able to do this, is if you go out to models, I'm going to close my views for now, but under models, and under data, we should have a migrations folder. We don't need models, sorry. But under data, we should have a migrations folder, and we should have that application DB context.cs file. That file actually works in conjunction with other DB context files. We'll talk about that in chapter 4. All right. But under migrations, there has been a migration made. And again, that's basically the one that was made when we chose individual accounts that set up those tables for us. These roles are something we're going to be talking about later on in the semester, but you can look at roles as having to do with authorization and authentication. All right. All right. I'm just going to do a file save all here, and I'm going to close my model because I really don't need that open anymore either. All right. So we're going to attempt to come through here and do all of this stuff. This is where, again, it kind of broke down last time for some of you. So I'm going to go out to View, and under View, I'm going to go to Other Windows, and then go about halfway down and find the Package Manager console. Now, I may or may not have said this last time, but in a way, if we were looking for an analogy here, in a way, this package manager is kind of like the node package manager. All right. But really what it is it's going over and it's saying anything that's available that we want to be able to add into our program, the stuff that we're about to do used to be added by default. All of the stuff that we're putting in used to be in there by default. And probably those of you who had problems wish it still was. But the point is, with Entity Framework 3.0, they decided that not everybody was going to want a database in each project. So they set it up so you bring it in through the package manager. All right. Okay. So, all right. We want to go in there. I already mentioned the application, DB context file, etc. Okay. So this is what we're going to be working with in just a second. All right. So before we do that, we want to set up a couple things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to controllers here. All right. And I'm going to right mouse click on the controllers folder. We did this last time, and I'm going to choose add, and I'm going to choose controller. All right. And you've seen this already. If we were starting totally from scratch, we would probably take the top one, the one that's highlighted. All right. If we were doing something that wasn't using the entity framework to do our database stuff, we would use the middle one. All right. But we are going to choose this last one here, and you can read the comments. What this should do for us is in our views folder, that it isn't here right now. All right, I'm going to cancel and go right back into it. But if I look in here, what's there in views is I've got a home index and a home privacy. We already looked at those. And under shared, I've got this view imports and this view start. We talked about those a little bit last week. But what we don't have in here is we don't have a folder in here that is going to do anything for MovieQuotes. And the reason we don't have that is we don't have a controller right now for MovieQuotes. That's what we're going to make. So again, I right mouse clicked, chose add, and then controller. All right. Then we are to give this, or choose this rather, the using entity framework, and choose add. Again, this isn't new. We did this last week. All right. The model class, when I click down here, it should be MovieQuotes, MovieQuote.app models. It's different from the one the other day because I changed the names. I had called the stuff before quotes or quotes 2. Now I'm calling it MovieQuotes. All right. So we've got that. Then we have to let it know to use this application DB context right here. So I click the plus sign, and it's somewhat set up, but right now it says MovieQuotesApp data .MovieQuotesApp context. We don't want this right here. We don't want that context. I don't know what I did there, but we don't want this. So we want it to say MovieQuotesApp.data. Then we want it to say this application DB context. Just like that. So it should say in there under model class, MovieQuotes app.model, and then we put this in there where it's MovieQuotes app, okay, .data, .application DB context. It should match this in spelling and in capitalization. All right. We're going to click add in a minute, but you'll notice that what we want to have come up eventually is the MovieQuotesController. All right, so I'm going to click add. And basically, this is other stuff that we want to do in here. So it says, do we want to generate views? And that's what's going to come in here in just a minute. Yes. Do we want to be able to reference the script library? In other words, do we want these views to be able to use Bootstrap or anything else that we have in there? Yes. Do we want to use a layout page? Yes. We could actually specify it there if we had one. We don't. All right. But we could do that. So we're just going to click add. It'll spin for a couple seconds. And now it made our MovieQuotesController. Also, when you look in here, now under views, we've got a MovieQuotes folder we did not have before. And if I open that up, there is our CRUD operations. All right, our create, our delete, our details, which is the equivalent of a select. All right, and our edit. So that stuff was created by us choosing that, saying that we wanted it to add those views. All right. Now we're going to start putting some code in here in a couple minutes, but first we want to do a few things here. When you look in here, again, this is going to be the file that we're going to use for our gets and for our posts. All right. And it'll have a get operation and a post operation for most of the CRUD that we want to do. And typically, again, when you use a get, it's designed to show you something. When you do a post, it's designed to react to something. You clicking a submit button or whatever that happens to be. All right. So with all that done, I'm going to jump back down into my package manager that's here. All right. Now, the first thing we want to do is do what's literally referred to as turning on or enabling the migration feature. All right. So we brought down the package manager console. And what we want to do is we want to enter in here, add hyphen migration. And to my knowledge, this is case sensitive. It is expecting it to be done the way that we are doing it. All right. And again, what you should see when this gets done in a couple minutes, there's a couple more things we'll have to add, is we should have another migrations file in here that's got today's date. And if we put initial setup in there or whatever text we put in, that'll be in there. All right. So it should be creating that. But the first thing we want to do is enable this to take place. So we're putting in add hyphen migration. And after that, we're hitting enter. Now it asks for a name. And again, that's the name that's going to go here. It'll be appended after an underscore onto the end of our migration file. Since this is the first one, I'm saying initial setup. Now, as we go on, if we were to add more migrations, we'll talk about why you'd want to do that in a bit. But if we were to add more migrations, I probably would start naming them migration 1, migration 2, or whatever. But since it's the first one, I could call it migration 0, but I'm just going to call it initial setup. That must be in double quotes. And it should be just put in as one word. All right. So initial setup in double quotes. All right. And then hit enter. And it'll, as it says there, it's starting to do a build. And it says the build succeeded. And when you look right there, there is the associated file that I've got off on the side showing here with today's date underscore initial setup.cs. All right. Now, we're still not done yet. All right. Because what we want to do then is basically we want to activate this. And we activate this using the command here, down here, update hyphen database. Update hyphen database, not in double quotes. All right. And hit enter. That takes a little bit longer. There's a lot of stuff that it's generating behind the scenes. All right. And it says now that it's done. Now, this is where we left it off last time, and 2 of you had problems. So I'm going to go again and view. I'm going to go to other windows, and I'm going to go to SQL Server. Well, it doesn't look like it even has it here. So I'll bring it up from over here. That's fine. Just in view near the top, I can do it there. SQL Server Object Explorer. All right. And again, if yours still isn't working, we're going to have to keep working on it until we make it work. That's all I can tell you. All right. So we're coming in there. And I think with mine, it's the first one here. I'm not positive. So I'm opening that. And under databases, I notice I've got a bunch of them that start with ASP.NET. If you have one that started with ASP.NET, the database was made either today, or if like Michael's work last time, his might just say ASP.NET hyphen quote or quotes. That's fine. But this is the one that I just created that's right here. All right. And if I go here, there were some tables that were created. The one that I care about is this one, the DBO movie quotes. And if I open that, what you should see in here, if I make this a little bigger and that a little smaller, is when you look in here, there is what I set up in my class. I set up the ID, which was an integer, the quote movie, the quote text, and the quote author, each of which were strings, which they change it over to nvarchar. I think I can come in here if I wanted to and change the size, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. Since I put ID in there, the system's smart enough to correlate that and say, oh, you want this to be your primary key, and unless you tell it otherwise, it sets it up as an identity field. In fact, it always sets it up as an identity field as long as you make the type an int. I could come in here if I wanted it to start at something other than 1. I could come in here and change that number. If I wanted it to increment by something other than 1, maybe by 10 or whatever, I could change that number. But I now have the database set up. So I'm asking you, all right, Mr. Mayfield, Mr. Stark, did either of yours work this time?
Mine did work. I'm just trying to figure out the server object explorer because I think I found it, but it's like buried in it. Should be
What's
just movie
weird?
quotes.
Okay, what's weird about this is it might actually be in 3 or 4 different places. It might be there's a server object explorer, there's a server explorer, there's 3 or 4 of these things. And what I've done over the years is I've tried doing it this way because this way seems to make the most sense to people. All right. And that's why I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it. Clayton,
Yeah.
that was you. That was you,
Yep.
Clayton, right?
Yep.
John, did yours work?
Not yet, because I went through, added the MVC controller, and in my class, 2 of my names were the same. They both ended it in app. So whenever I ran it, it worked, but there was errors. And then whenever I did the package console, manager
Okay.
console, that's whenever I did a build failed. So I'm trying to go back and see if I can fix it. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Well, and otherwise, I mean, it's 12:41. We'll go till about 12:55 and then take a break. If you have to, all right, just go back and restart everything if you have to, I guess. I mean, because I want this to work for both of you, you know. I will tell you that one thing we're going to look at doing, not right now, but in chapter 4 already, is when we come in here and we go into our models. You already saw this. So you saw this model. What you can put in as one of the fields in your model is another table. All right. In other words, what you're basically doing, excuse me, is you're setting up a foreign key, and later we will run another migration. And when we do that, that will allow us to bring in, we'll create another class, which will allow us to create another table in here. But the system has to know to link these tables together, there has to be something in common between them. All right. And that's what we're going to get into in chapter 4, along with a few other things. All right. All right. So again, at least hopefully, all right, we're going to be able to go on and get something done here now. All right. Like I said, that's my hope. So we've come in, we created the project, we set it up so that it had authorization and authentication. That's again in our login and our register. All right. Then we came in and we created a class that you see on your screen right now for MovieQuotes. All right. Then we created a MovieQuotes controller. All right. And then we came in and we did a migration. All right. So that's pretty much where we are so far. Now, the thing is, if I go in right now, I'm just going to do a file save all, and I don't think I need most of this stuff, at least. I don't need open anymore. So I'm just, for now, I'll close it and I'll open it up later if or as I need it. All right. But if I run this now, for lack of better words, it's going to look exactly like it did before. So we've got this, and I think I said this the other day, but I want to make sure because I'm trying here. I'm trying to be as complete as I can. When I click here, it doesn't go anywhere because this is a shortcut for saying home index. So if I come in there and put in home index and hit enter, it looks the same. This is the same thing as if I came in here and said privacy. All right. Well, I thought, well, there's not a privacy index. I thought it was privacy. Well, let's look. I'll go back and click privacy. Oh, it's home privacy. My fault. All right. But what I'm trying to do, maybe not great, but what I'm trying to show you here is the fact that what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to jump from page to page. And in order to be able to do this, because again, we're building a web app, we have to sit there and set up all the routing. And the controllers are going to work in conjunction with these routes that we have to set up so that if we go here, it knows where to go. If we go here, it knows where to go. And right now, we're going to add another thing in here. All right, we're going to add another thing right now that we're going to put in there. When we add it, it won't do a flaming thing because basically, if we click on it, it'll either give us an error or nothing will happen. It'll probably give us an error because it'll say, hey, I'm trying to run a method that goes with this and there isn't any. That's okay. Again, we're building this very deliberately, or at least I'm trying to make sure we're doing that. All right. So I'm going to close this and we're going to go back into our program now. All right. So we're going to add something to our nav bar. So what I want you to do, and I don't know if, I think that's where we stopped last time. So I don't think we did this last time. All right. But I'm going to close a bunch of this stuff that we don't need open right now. You can keep it open, do whatever you want to do. All right, but I'm going to go under views, and under views, I'm going to open up shared. All right. We talked a little bit about some of this stuff in here. This right here, error.cshtml, we can write our own generic error page in here if we want to do that. All right. A lot of times what's going to happen is if you get error messages, and you'll see this in the next chapter or two, is what's going to come up is very terse. In other words, it won't be very, it won't do a good job of explaining what the problem does. Not only that, when you get errors, all right, what's going to happen is it's going to show you information that is basically system information that you wouldn't want to share with other people. All right. So that's why you typically will go and build your own in here. The scripts partial and the login partial, let's worry about those in a bit. But let's go to layout here. All right. And when you look in this layout right here, I want to keep this open, but I want to shrink it way down. Oh, maybe not. There. All right. So this basically is what is running on every page that we have. So let's take a look at what's in here. All right. All right. We've got in here MovieQuotesApp. That's the title. You've seen that already. This is all the external information that it is grabbing from www.root. All right. So this says, hey, I want bootstrap min CSS. So where is that? If I go to www.root and I go to lib and I go to bootstrap and I go to in bootstrap, I go to dist, that's where this is. That's the CSS file. That file that you see right there, the path to that file is this right here. All right, that's what that is. The tilde that's there means basically start from the root. Okay, all right. Then we've got here, and that's the site.css. I think you've seen this already, but just to be sure, let me close this and this. There's CSS, there's site.css. It's very minimal, as you can see. All right, we can put anything we want to put in here. All right, close that. Close the wrong one. Sorry, let me bring this back up again. All right, then we've got, as you can see, MovieQuote.styles.css. That we can put our own stuff into. We can build it underneath here. Don't worry about that for right now. All right, I just wanted you to realize that it's grabbing this stuff from in here. And we can add more stuff to that too if we want to or need to do that. All right, now when you look in here, this isn't a perfect thing, but what we're already seeing in here is we're already using Bootstrap. You should be able to see that. For instance, we've got class equal container fluid, class equal navbar brand. These are all Bootstrap classes that we're using. All right. And when we go and work our way down a little bit in here, okay, what we're seeing in here is, move this down here. There's home, there's privacy. Those are our two links that you see. And what it's telling us in here is, okay, we've got this link. Yeah, they make it dark. We're not using areas yet. We talked a little bit about that, but we will much later in the class. But what it's saying is take that link and associate it. Try it again. Take that link, associate it with this controller and with this action or method of the controller. So when you click home, it should run the index. When you click privacy, it should run the home privacy. All right. So what we want to do here, all right, is, and there's different ways we could do this, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to grab these three lines that are right here. To me, this is the easiest way of doing it. I'm grabbing those three lines. I'm going to copy them to the clipboard, and I'm going to paste them right underneath where I currently am. So I've got two things that look identical in here. All right, I've got two things that look identical. We're going to change that in a minute. All right, I'm not going to run it, but if I ran this now, I literally would have on my line, I'd have home, privacy, privacy, which would be stupid, but I could do it. All right, but rather than my home controller, all right, in for this one, I want to use under controllers, I want my movie quotes controller. So you put that in, you don't put in the word controller, but you put in here movie quotes, because that's the name of it. All right, movie quotes. And the action, no, I don't want that. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to show the quote author, or I want us to be able to come in here and search for a quote author. Okay, I think I may have shown this to you last time on my one completed, I don't know. But for example, what I want is I want that eventually to bring up a form where I can enter somebody's name. So if I put in there Rocky Balboa and I click the button to search for it, it'll go through and it'll see if there's any quotes from Rocky Balboa. And the way that we'll do this is if there's multiple ones, it will list all of them. If there are none, it won't list anything. It won't give us an error message. It just won't list anything. All right. So as we come in here, all right. Okay, let's see. Copy, close. Yeah, we've done all that. Yeah. All right, we will put in here for our action, we will put in index. All right, we will put index in there. And in fact, we're going to do it like this, okay? We're going to come in here and we'll first just show all of our quotes. How's that? We'll show everything. So this will be index. So this is going to run and we're going to put here quotes. Again, we could put whatever we wanted to put in there, but what I want you to take away from this is looking at this. This is the controller. This is the action in that controller. Try that again. This is the controller. That's the action in the controller. And that's going to be the text that when we click it is going to cause that action to take place. All right. And I hope at least what I just said made at least a little bit of sense. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a file and I'm going to do a save all. And then to make sure it worked, I'm going to run this. All right. When I bring that up, you'll notice now I've got a third one. And when I click quotes, what happens? All right. That's good. All right. Now I'm going to get an error when I click create new. And the reason it's going to give me an error is it's going to be looking for a method to create a new quote, which I have not provided yet, but I'm purposely going to click this. So eventually what we're going to have in here is the name of the movie. All right. The quote itself, and then the author of the quote. All right. We'll have that stuff in before we leave today. But when I click create new, oh, it actually is giving me that. Okay, I didn't think it would. And I'm going to change that around a little later anyway, because I want to be able to just put in, you know, the name of the person who said the movie or whatever. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm going to do this. If this worked for you, if you got it here, all right. Was anybody able to?
I got a
Yes.
question for you.
Yes.
I guess I got lost, but on the when you took out the privacy and put the quotes in, did you just copy and paste the
Okay,
LI and make a new one?
No, because I don't want you to be left behind. So I'm going to show you exactly what I did.
Okay.
All right. So I came back here. Yes, to answer your question, I grabbed these lines that were right above it, these 3 lines, copied them to the clipboard, then pasted them right down below. Okay. And then I changed because the controller I wanted was not the home controller. I wanted the movie quotes controller, and the action was index. And the wordage here was quotes. Am I answering your question?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So okay. So what's kind of cool is, again, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to run this again, but I want to show you something. I think it's cool. Maybe you don't. But when I come in here now and I go to quotes and I choose create new, and I'm going to say the movie, because I was on the other night and I had to tell my granddaughter about it. Finding Nemo. That's the movie. The quote was just keep swimming. And the author was Dory. All right. So I put that in. You could put anything in the world in here you wanted to. And I click create. And there you go. So we now have our first quote in here. Now we've got 50 quotes. That's why we're not going to use this, but we could manually enter them like this if we wanted to do so. All right. When I click edit, it brings this back up again, exactly what we had before. When I click details, it actually shows me what's in each field. And I can go to edit from here if I want to. All right. Or from here, I can go back to the list. And here, right now, if I click delete, it's just, it says, are you sure you want to delete this? Kind of nice that that's built in. All right. And you'll notice that there is no cancel. If I do this now, it's gone. If I do this, it kept it there. All right. So we're going to take a break in just a minute, but I want to ask the question first. Even if yours didn't work, conceptually, does everybody understand what we've been doing thus far? Does anybody have any questions? Because I don't want to go on when there's still questions, because this is fundamental stuff. All right, since I'm not hearing anything, I have to take for granted then that that is making sense. All right. Okay. So what we want to do after the break, all right, after the break is, and I'm going to stop my run here. I don't need it to be running. All right. But after the break, we're going to come into the movie quotes controller. And right now, what we're doing is this. When you look here, this is what's running. When we click that button, this is what's running. All right. We're basically telling it to get everything, to view everything. If we had multiple ones in there, just to show you this, and you don't have to put this in, but I do want to show you. And that is if I came in there and said, so if I go back to quotes again, and I said create new, all right, and I'm going to come in here and I don't know, the movie would be Rocky. The quote text would be Adrian, we did it. And it would be from Rocky Balboa. All right. And when I click this, now you'll notice I have two in there. The reason I took the time to show you this is when I click on edit now, notice what it has. It has the number of the one that I just did. All right. So in other words, what we're doing is we're adding more information on to the URL. All right. We're going to eventually add even more than this. We're going to put something onto the URL that's typically referred to as a slug. All right. All right. It is 1 o'clock. Let's take a break. All right. I need to get my head back together again. So we're going to take a little more time than usual. 1:15. We're going to come back here and we're going to finish this up. We're about halfway done with it right now. All right. So please come back at 1:15. I'm getting a new water. John, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm looking at your error right now. I'm not sure if this is it or not, but my first thing to think about on that would be under your models, the model that we created in there, the movie quote model. Okay. Am I right in assuming that yours looks like this? Because if it does that, it should be finding and creating a primary key for you.
Yeah, no, it looks exactly like that.
Oh.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
So for the quotes on the navbar, I put it in there with the controller, and it's not working. And I've changed it to a lot of different things.
Okay. Well, we're going to go back and take a look at it then as soon as we get back from the break.
Okay.
I finally got his work.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, then I don't need this. So you are caught up then, correct?
I'm now nowhere near caught up. I just did the controllers. So.
All right. Then I'll tell you what, just keep following along. And like I said, I'm going to put mine out there. You should have used the same names and stuff. See if you can, when I get done, see if you can just download mine otherwise. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. All right. So let's get back to it. And Clayton, you had asked, so I want to make sure. So we had done two things. On the movie controller, actually, it wasn't on the movie controller, it was on the layout file here. So you said we talked about this. This is what yours looks like then, correct?
Yep.
All right. So everything is in there. And you've got I'm taking for granted that you use the
actually,
same
real
names.
quick, did you name that movie quotes after your database? What's your
No,
database?
that's the same name as the controller.
Okay, as the controller.
That's
so mine's MovieQuotesApps, and that's what I use.
That's okay. That's the name of your controller?
Yeah.
Your controller should have the word controller on the end of it.
Yeah, it does. It's MovieQuotesApps controller.
Okay, so you put MovieQuotesApps here then.
Yeah.
Okay, then that should be correct. And then index here. And then quotes there. And if you, excuse me, if you do go into the controller, all right, that's the name that the name that you should have. I'll try that again. Sorry about that. The name that you should have in there also, when you open up your movies controller, mine's Movie Quotes Controller, so yours should be Movie Quotes App Controller, correct?
Yes. Actually, yeah, hang on, let me run it now. I think I may have just fixed it. Give me 1 second. All right, it's good now. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It works though. It's all there.
Okay.
Good to
Well,
go.
it's funny because just so you guys know, when I talked to Evan last week on Friday, I said, Evan, the biggest difference between your class and my class, I mean, we're teaching it the same way. I'm not talking about the content, but I said, when something goes wrong, you can walk over to their desk and probably figure it out, or you can look at faces and know that people are getting stuff or are not getting stuff. I said, I don't have that luxury. And he just laughed. And he said, yeah, he understood, you know. So, but there's a good chance. I don't want to get into that. So let's just go on. All right. So in our controller, if you haven't done so already, open up your Movie Quotes controller. If you have not done so already, open up your Movie Quote controller. All right. And it's what I'm going to ask you to do in here is going to sound a little weird, but just bear with me. I want you to go down to here where it says get movie quotes. Now, for me, it's line 22. It should be either the same for you or darn similar to it. I want you to highlight all of that plus the blank line underneath it. So I want you to highlight where it says public async task, action result index. And it's got the return in there. I want you to go and highlight all of that. All right. Then after you highlight all of it, I want you to copy it. So click, however you do a copy, either Control C or right mouse, click on it and choose copy, or do an edit copy. It doesn't matter. All right. And then paste it right below where you are. Now, it's going to complain because you already got something named index. All right. Just for right now, just put in there, just put the number 2 in there, just so we've got something so we don't get an error. We're going to come back to that and work on that in just a minute. But I wanted to have that particular thing set up. All right. Okay. So just do a file, save all. You can close that. We are going to open it up in a couple minutes, but you can close it for now. All right. I don't need this open. All right. So I'm back here and I'm back at my shared layout file. That's where I'd like you to be. Okay. All right. And we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we did before. Not exactly, but we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we did before. All right. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I want you to do is grab the thing that you just put in, these 3 lines, copy them to the clipboard, and then paste them in right underneath where they were. Yeah, we're going to add another thing in here. All right. I copied 3 lines. For me, it was lines 27, 28, and 29. I copied them. Those are the ones we did previously, and I pasted them right below where we are. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to keep this as movie quotes, but we don't want the same action. That would be kind of dumb. All right. So the action we're going to put in here, all right, we could make this as big, as small, as whatever that we want in here. All right. But I'm going to put in here author underscore search. What we will want to be able to do, I'm sorry, hold on. What I gave you is right. I just put it in the wrong place. All right. So the action that we're going to put in there is just going to be, we'll put in there author search, and we're going to run it together like that. And then in here, this is going to be author underscore search. Sorry about that. So think about what's going on here. We are going to have another item that's going to be on our navigation bar. That item that's on our navigation bar will say author underscore search. When we click that option, it's going to call a routine we have not yet written that's called author search. All right. And what we want to be able to do is, if I have 10 quotes by Rocky Balboa, I want to be able to put in there Rocky, hit enter, and then the only quotes I want it to show me are quotes, by Rocky. Now, if I just put Rocky in there, and this, I mean, it's going to sound stupid, but it just popped into my head. We don't have any quotes from the movie Rocky and Bullwinkle. But if we put Rocky in there, it'll find Rocky Balboa and it'll find Rocky and Bullwinkle type of thing. So anything with Rocky in it. Plus, to my knowledge at least, since we are working in SQL Server, this stuff's all case insensitive. All right. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a file, save all.
Mr. Scott, you need a C in your search there in your action.
You are correct. Well, I didn't, but if I wanted it to work the way I'm about to write it, you're right. All right, so that should be, you're right, thank you. So the action will be author search. The controller is movie quotes. And the name that we're using that's going to call this action is author underscore search. Okay, hopefully everybody's cool with that. So we're going to do a file, save all, and then I'm going to close this. All right. Now, I'm going to run this again. And when I click that entry, that link, it's going to give me an error. And you should be able to understand why. You should know why. All right. Author search, click it. Says the local page can't be found. It's going out and it's looking for something here. So it's looking under localhost, my port number, movie quotes. It's looking for something named author search. We haven't written that yet. All right. What we will want to do is that will be a get. That will be a get. And what we will want it to do will be to show us a form. And the only thing we want that form to say is something like author name or something. We don't, when we're searching for an author, we don't need to put in the movie. We don't need to put in, or the movie title. All right. We need the author name, but we don't need the movie quote. That's what we're looking for. All right. All right. So in our quotes controller file, I'm going to stop the run here and I'm going to go back to our quotes controller file. All right. And now you'll see hopefully why I asked you to put that thing in a couple minutes ago. All right. Let me close a little bit of this stuff that's open here. And I'm going to go over to my movie quotes controller. And again, I put in another one here that we called index 2. This one. All right. Excuse me. So what we want to do is we want to change the name of this. We don't want it to say here index 2. Remember that the name of this was author search. And thanks to Mr. McLean, we have the C in there. So I think that was you who said that. So right now, these two methods are identical. The author search and the index. So just to prove that, I'm going to save it. I'm going to run this. And you'll notice that if I come here and click quotes, come on, there's my two quotes. And if I go to privacy and then go to author search, all right, it didn't work. Well, the reason that it didn't work is let's look at what's here. All right. This is called the server error page. And it says, well, something was wrong. It says the view author search was not found. All right. And what does that mean? That means it was looking to display something and I didn't have it displaying anything. So it says the following locations were searched. So it let me know where it looked, but it couldn't find anything there. Now I can come here and notice what's highlighted here is stack. I'm actually giving you some stuff from chapter 5 right now, but this is a stack. This is showing that was called from this, which was called from this, which was called from this, etc. It's letting me know the progression from first to last. And you can be darn sure that there's going to be at least one thing in here that was mine, and there are going to be many things that are in here that are not mine. In other words, there were a bunch of system routines in here. And I can tell you that more than 99 times out of 100, when you get an error like this, it's your code. It's not in the system code. All right. So we can also go back and you'll notice here, we can go there. We can look at cookies to see if there is anything. We can look at any header information that was passed. And there's really not a lot of routing yet because we haven't set that up. All right. But what I wanted to show you is this right here. That's what it's telling us. That the view author search, the author search view was not found. So we're going to make that. All right. Now we can just keep this all right here. Everything is fine. Okay. And you might say, well, wait a minute, that worked. And this is the same quote. Yeah. But remember, this was going to slash index. This is going to slash author search. There isn't anything. So when we take a look in here, when we went to slash index, underneath here, underneath our views and underneath movie quotes, there's an index. There is nothing in here that says author search. So it's trying to go someplace and it has literally absolutely no idea where it wants us to go. All right. So we went and we found and we copied that quotes thing down. We put it right below. All right. We changed it accordingly. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is rather than when I return a view, all right, I don't want this. Okay. Literally what I want it to return is this. Now, I'm going to show you something, and I don't know if it's going to work or not. According to what I've read online, what I'm about to show you works, but when I tried doing it before, it didn't work. So let's see. What I wanted to return is this. So I'm going to copy this and put it here. When I tried doing that, now it's not giving me an error now, it's giving me a warning. All right, and it's saying converting method to the non-delegate type, but when I ran it, it didn't like it. But when I did this, and I did a file save, all, and then ran it, I'm probably still going to get an error, so don't worry if I do. And I go to author search, all right? But when I did it before, all right, when I read this online, they said they recommend that you take this and you put it in here, because putting it in there like this and putting it in there like this with the word author search are supposed to be the same thing. But when I did it that way, I got yet another error. When I got mine to finally work, I didn't put anything in there. And I don't know if what I just said made any sense or didn't make any sense. All right, but we did get that invalid operation exception. So what we're going to do then is we're going to add a search form view. And there's two ways that we can do this, just so you know. There's two ways that we can add a view to author search, which is what we're working with right now. The first way is the harder way. You don't have to do this. I'm not going to do it. We could come into the right folder, right mouse click on it, all right? And it'd be in one of the views folders here. It'd probably be in this one. We could right mouse click on it, choose add, and choose view. And there's nothing at all wrong with doing it that way. Nothing. But there's a lazy way that most people use. And that is we go up to right here where we've got our author search, and we right mouse click on there and we choose add view. That's the way most of the time that you do it. That's the way I'm going to do it. And you'll notice in here, we get, again, two different things. We get razor view empty, and we get razor view. The difference between those is probably what you think it is. We're going to choose razor view empty because that's going to write some of the code for us. All right, but it's actually first going to bring up a dialog. So please, if you haven't done so already, right mouse click on this author search that we added, and let's be consistent here, okay? So where I've got the comment where it says movie quotes, I'm going to put in movie quotes / author search. I mean, the time to put in your comments and be complete is when you are creating the code. It's not where, oh, we go back and we put in, I still remember that when I had my first professional programming job, and I asked about commenting, and the guy who was in charge of the project, oh, we do that at the end. Well, we never went back and wrote comments, period. All right, because something else came up. Okay, so again, I'm going to right mouse click on here, and I'm going to choose add view, and it brings this up. I'm going to choose razor view, not razor view empty, and I'm going to click add. And it brings this stuff up. All right. All right, and with the stuff, so to speak, with the stuff that it brings up here, okay, it's going to add or expect us to put in a few things. All right, and I've totally lost my place in my notes here, so give me just a second. There we are. Okay. Okay, so it's asking us, like it says there, for the view. Okay. And notice in here, it's got template, empty without model. And if we click on this, look what it has. It basically has our CRUD operations. So right now it supposes that we want to build this thing from scratch. All right. Now you might look at this. This is going to be an author search. But what we want is we're going to want a form created for us. And we will take that form that's created for us and remove anything we don't need. So literally, The one that's in here, the one that we will choose is the first one that says create. All right. Again, remember, we are going to be creating a view, which in our case here is going to be a form. All we'll want that form to have in it will be a label that says something like author to search for or whatever, and then a text box. That's what we're going to want in there. All right. So
Mr. Scott,
yes.
what component was that you added to get it's Razor View? Which
All
one
right.
is that in the? Okay.
I went back to here, right mouse clicked on here, chose add view, and then Razor View. And then add. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And believe me, and I'm not just saying this, I love questions. When something isn't making sense, I don't want you to say, well, I'll get that later or whatever. No, I want you to ask right now. So thank you. All right. So author search. And again, we're choosing create here. All right. Then notice model class, and it says that it's required. Well, you can probably at least look through here and notice the one we had from before, MovieQuotesApp.models. That's the one that we're going to want. All right. And then when you look here under the context, let me double check. Oh. There it is. Okay. Oh, I flipped my pages around, and that's why I was looking at something. I'm like, this is wrong. Okay, now I got it. Okay, create. And then we've got our movie quotes model, the data context class. All right. Application DB context. It's the same name as we had, and it's letting us know that it's using this one from data. That's correct. Everything that's in there is correct. Before you click add, which we're going to do, choose create as a partial view. Now, that's not going to make a whole heck of a lot of sense now. All right. But what you'll find out is we want this to be part of our main template. All right. So it's something that we're going to work with later, which is why we're including it now. This one, don't worry about it. It's just checked like that. It doesn't matter. And click add. It's spinning, but under our views folder, all right, we've got something now that wasn't in there before. If you look over, if you can, hopefully you can see my mouse going back and forth here, author search.cshtml. All right, that's exactly what we wanted. Now, good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter. There's a bunch of stuff in here we don't need. I'm saying this again. There is a bunch of stuff in here that we do not need. All right. So we're going to start removing it. And I'm not going to do it piecemeal. I want to explain what we're doing as we're removing it. This add model right here, this would be if we were adding something. We're not. We're just searching. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that line. We don't need that line in there. So remove that. All right, the next thing is, rather than having this say movie quotes, we're going to say enter a movie quote author. Okay, don't worry about these errors that are down here. We're going to fix those in a bit. All right, so that'll say enter a movie quote author. All right, now when you look in here, just so you see this, it still has stuff in here for what? The quote, the text, and the author. I think you can all see that. We will not need in here, so we can remove this. We will not need this div for the name of the movie. So we can highlight all that. We do not need this div for the name of or for the text of the quote. The only one we'll need is the author. Now I'm asking you a question before I go and hit delete there or hit a key. Does that make sense? We're searching for a quote author. We want the system to show us the movie and the quote. So we're creating a very simplistic form that's only going to have in there the author and then a button. So I'm asking, does that not make sense to anybody? All right, then I'm going to remove this. Okay, now we'll get this fixed in just a minute. It's not a big change. But before we do, there's some other stuff in here we don't need. We're not going to be doing any validation. So if we go down to the bottom here, where it says scripts, this is validation. We're not doing any validation here. All right, so I can remove that. And again, if I'm going too fast, please stop me. All right, now I'm going to go back up here. And there's a couple more lines. There's a line here, it's my line 6, that says validation summary. I don't need that either. So that's gone. Then there's a span on my line 9 that says validation. I don't need that line. So you can see I'm thinning this out for lack of better words. All right, I'm thinning this out. All right, okay. All right. Now, the reason we're getting these errors is this is going to be a regular HTML form. I want to say that again. This is, going to be a regular HTML form. So we can have a label, all right, and we can have a for equal in there. We don't even have a name for this label. So this is going to say, quote, author. All right, and let me move that over a little so you can see everything there. But notice how the one error went away. Okay, it's because this is not ASP stuff. All right, this is going to be an input right in here. And remember, hopefully you remember this from last semester. All right, we're working with this stuff and we're basically working with it as a web app. I want to double check because I don't want to give you something that's wrong. So give me 1 second here. I think I know what it is, but I want to tell you the right thing. I'm tired of doing this and giving you bad information. I don't want to do that. That's the wrong one. What I'm getting to is this. Let me go back to it. All right. This is an input, a regular input. All right. So I think we can just say type equals text. Need an equal sign there. And then name equal quote author. And I even could put an ID in there, because maybe later I'll want to quote author. Maybe later I'll want to add some CSS. Let me put this over multiple lines here. All right, so you can see everything that's going on. All right, and I did not, my double quote there. There we go. All right. Now, normally I wouldn't do that, but I'm putting stuff over multiple lines because I want you to be able to see everything. All right. Now, I'll leave that up there, but I'll come right back to it, but I'm going to do a save all here, and I'm going to run this. And I'm going to go to author search. There it is. That's what we just created. Now, this right here, this is a get. All right, when I click create, nothing's happening. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'll add something. Okay, Rocky. And nothing's happening because I haven't written that yet. It also alerted me to one more thing. Okay, this shouldn't say create. Let's call this search. We're not creating anything there. We are searching for an existing quote. All right. So I believe that is correct and everything is in here. But what we have to do is we have a get method. We don't have a post method yet. We're going to write that momentarily. But again, because I'm trying to be as thorough as possible here, my question for you is what we're doing. Can you see the natural progression? You know, is it making at least some sense to you? All right. And that's my hope. That's about all that I can hope. What I'm telling you is now when I come here to author search, enter a movie quote author, that was that H4 we put in. This was the label we just added. That was the text box that we just added. All right. We just changed that from create the search. But when you click search, what you want to have happen is a post operation. We have written a get operation for this. That is what showed us our form. We have not yet written a post operation. So right now, there's nothing for it to handle. All right. And like I said, if what I just mentioned to you does not make sense, then please ask. All right. All right. Let's do this. When you are doing this stuff, I mean, this is the way I learned to do it. Okay. I'm going to do a file save all, and I'm going to close this for now. I'm going to close the author search.html. And I want to go back to my movie controller. All right. There's a lot of, I wouldn't even say it's debate, but I think it's a really good idea. Some people, what they like to do is, if you notice here, all of our gets are together. All right. All of our gets, and then come some posts, and then some gets. Some people like to actually rearrange this stuff so that all their, that you've got a quote, and then the post, then the associated get, then a post, then the get, etc. You can do it any way you want. I would recommend leaving it the way that it is. All right. But right now, what we added so far in there, all right, what we added was this. That was that author search. I want you to please understand something. All right. Because what we want to do now is we want to put in a post for this author search. But before we do, I want to make sure you understand. And that is when we click details, this is what's being called. So when I clicked it just on that, on the Rocky, all right, when I click details, when there were two different quotes in there, this is what ran. All right. And it's letting me know when you look at this that putting an ID in here is not mandatory. So the question mark means that adding an ID is optional. And why am I telling you this? Because I want you to understand that when I come through here and I run this and I click quotes, it shows me what? Everything, correct? But if I click quotes and I add there /1 and hit enter, Try it again. I think it's edit/1. All right. Then it's only showing us one, and that might be details. Maybe that's what it is. All right. And what I'm trying to get across to you, because I've done this before, I've given lectures like this before where people get confused. I want you to see what code is running. So this is the code that's running with what I just put in there. All right. So notice it's saying, hey, if it's null, if it's there, return not found. In other words, we can handle that in any way we want. We could put a message in there that said not found or whatever we wanted to do. But if we get down to here, it's finding something. So what it's doing basically is it's coming in here and it's running a link command. And it's saying, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to go in and compare whatever the ID is that we added to whatever ID, to basically go through there and give me the first one that gets returned that you find. I'm maybe not explaining it well, but I want you to understand what's going on. When we clicked that create, when we first started, we clicked, right here, what that did was that brought up that form. All right. Once we filled out the form, this is what happened. All right. And you'll notice when you look in there that this is all inside of an if statement that says if model state dot is valid. What that is going to do is it's going to go in and it's going to check to see that every single field that has been defined as not allowing nulls has been filled in, and every field that's been filled in is of the right type. So had I come in there, these are all strings, so it doesn't matter. If I put 37 in there, if I put 37 in there for the movie author, it thinks the name of the movie author or the quote author is 37. That's no biggie. But it gets to be really important when you've got numeric fields. All right. And the other stuff, the context.add, etc., we're going to be going through all that. All right. But either way, whether this works or it doesn't work, then it says to return this. Okay. All right. Again, this is that edit that I mentioned before. This is the post for that. All right. And what does that mean? That means if you try to do a post and you try putting a number in there, what'll run? There's a delete in here. What you'll notice when you look at the deletes, there's a delete with an ID. Now it says that that's not mandatory, but I think in this case it probably would be, because you'd only want it to delete a single record. All right. But there is some stuff that's in here that, virtually everything that you see in here was auto added for us. All right. But I just want you to have an idea of when you run through the gamut of different stuff that you can do in here, just exactly what's happening. All right. And I hope at least that made a little sense. I'm not trying to waste your time, is what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Now, this right here is the thing that we created before, this author search. Okay. And again, what we're saying in here, let me close that. I didn't mean to do that. Is in this author search, when we get to this point here, all right, the stuff that's in here, we basically want to let it know, all right, when we click the button, okay, we have to kind of let it know, we have to basically set something up so it knows, for lack of better words, it knows what to do. And you might say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Then let's run through it. All right. What we want to do is in here, we want to find our I'm going to go back into Movie Controller here. All right. And in this Movie Controller, we've got our show search form. I think you'd agree with that, or the author search right here. We got that. But we don't have a post for that. All right. We have a get, but we don't have a post. So we're going to put one in, and I'm just going to put it right underneath. That's why I mentioned to you before, some people try to put all their gets, etc. together. I want to put my post along with a get that's with it. All right. So I'm going to copy this. I'd like you to do the same. Go into your MovieQuotesController.cs. And for me, it's line 28. For you, it should be there or darn near it. Find your Get Movie Quote / author search. Highlight all of it, including the comment and the blank line below it. Copy that to the clipboard and paste that in right below where it is. All right. Again, you'll get an error because it already exists, but we want to change this to post. All right. So this is our post. And since it's just a comment, that didn't change anything. All right. So you might say, oh, well, what is this? These things are the same. This and this are the same. I think you'd all agree with that. All right. So what we have to do, if you remember, we talked about this in the C# class, that this right here and what goes in the parentheses here and here, that's known as the method signature. Technically, the signature is the name of the method, any parameters, and what it returns. For us, we care about this can't be the same as this. They can't be the same. There needs to be a difference between them. All right. So what we're going to put in there for our difference is we're going to put a string in there, and we can call it whatever we want, but it's going to be search term. All right. So that search term that we put in, all right, that is going to be the name of the author that we put in when we are in here. All right. I'm asking you this question, and if it doesn't make sense, does this make sense? What we're doing here, does it make sense? All right. We want to be able to run the program. We want to be able to enter a name in there. We want that name basically to be passed into our post routine. All right. And we're going to call it in their search term. Now, is it possible I forgot something? Damn right it's possible. You know me well enough to know that it is. But we're getting there is what I'm telling you. Now, when we return, all right, up here, I just want you to see this. This line right, where is it? Right here. This line is what we had when we ran Movie Quotes Index, which said, return everything. We want you to return everything. Well, we almost want to do that. So we're going to take this line that we've got up above here, that's the get movie quotes, this return. I want you to copy that line to your clipboard. So I'm highlighting it, copying it to the clipboard, and I'm putting it in here under my author search. We're going to have to modify it. All right, we're going to have to modify it. All right, but I want you to see that. Now, what modifications are we going to have to make? Well, we basically, for now at least, we want it to use this. We want it to use this. That's called index. So we're first going to put in here index, comma, just like that. All right, we're not done yet, but we have made a lot of headway in what we're doing. Again, we're not done, but we've made a lot of headway in there. All right. All right, and I mentioned this the other day, but I want to say this again. All right, these two words, this word and this word, work in tandem with one another. And what if you use await, what that means in English, I'm not reading from my notes or anything. What it means is you're doing an operation that can take time. All right. So when you put an await on there, you basically are telling it that you want it to basically, for lack of better words, not go on in this particular context until we've gotten results. When you use await, you must use async with it. They work as a team. If I left the word async out of there, I'd get an error in my code. It may not even show an error, but when I run it, I would get an error. The reason that I'm taking the time to tell you that, is because virtually every database operation that you do can take time. All right. Again, asynchronous, all that means is that it's possible to execute multiple things at one time without having to finish what you're currently working on. But it's smart enough to know, all right, that really there's nothing I'm going to be able to do with this search until it returns something. All right. And like I said, I'm not sure if that made sense, but when you use async, what you're saying is that you are trying to do a task that could conceivably take time to repeat. So it's pausing execution of the current method until the asynchronous task that is being awaited completes. All right, so these two work together, for lack of better words, as a unit. Like I said, maybe I didn't say it well. I don't know. All right. Now, I don't know if what I'm about to show you is going to work or not, but I'm going to do a file save. And I'm going to run it again. First of all, I want to run it to make sure it still runs and it didn't break anything. All right. Now, when I do this and I type in here quotes, or I click on quotes, it gives me my quotes. When I click on author search, all right, okay, it doesn't like something. And I think that what it doesn't like is the fact that I have to be passing that search term to the function, and I'm not currently passing that search term to the function. All right. One thing I've noticed, just you probably could care less, but what I'm doing is I'm doing these programs first by myself, printing out some stuff along with notes, and I'm going to have to print in a bigger font because it's getting very hard for me to read this at like a 12-point font. All right. So what we're going to do is this. It's a little early. We're going to take a short break. We're going to take till 2:15 because I want to find out where my line is. We've got to go back into here. We've got to go back into here and we have to pass that. All right. We have to call this and we have to make sure that we are passing that search term, and we're not right now. All right. Once we do that, just so you see this, all we're going to do when we come back is we're going to go in and we're going to look at, and we can do this right now. It's not going to hurt anything. All right. But in our routes controller, every single time that we've got anything with a get or a post, every time we got something with a get comment or a post comment, we're going to put in here authorize. The first time we do it, we're going to get an error. I'm going to put in authorize and it's going to give me an error. It's going to say, I don't know what the hell that is. But if I take my mouse and put it here, all right, and I click on someplace over here, right there, the quick actions, all right, we're going to want to be doing a using in there. Let's not do it now. All right. I don't like the way this is looking, but we're going to be putting the word authorize here and 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 here All right, and here, and here. Why? That means that every time we attempt to do one of those operations that right now we can do, what it's going to do is instead, it's going to bring a form up that tells us, hey, you got to log in before you can do this. All right. So we will come in and we will first click register ourselves as a user. After we do that, then we should be able to go in and do any operation. But once we log out, we should not be able to do any operation. All right. And that's what I'm trying to get across to you. All right. So it's 2:05, 10 minutes. Let's come back at 2:15 and finish this up. All right, couple things. First of all, one of the reasons we were getting that error is it was calling itself. The action was author search. Okay, I want to change this. I don't want these both to be called author search. Okay, I want this one to be called author search results, because this will give me the results of the search. So I'm changing here where I had post movie quotes author search. I'm changing the name to author search results. Okay, we're going to make a couple more changes in a moment, but it looks, that's the whole thing. Now we're going to have to change this because otherwise it's going to return everything, which is what we don't want. We're going to want to change that query in here in just a moment. All right. Now, the problem is we're never calling this. So we want this author search results. Okay. And in here, that's where this should be. The action should be author search results. And I want you to really start wrapping your head around, we call this thing right here, quote author, right? That's its name. So that was the name of the text box that we put in. That quote author that we're calling in here is going to become search term in here. If that's too hard for you to understand, then call it search term in both of them. So call this search term. That's totally fine. In fact, it really should be a little s, but that's fine. So search term, call it that there and there and there. That's totally fine. Or leave it the way it is. It doesn't matter. But this has to be changed to author search results. All right, I'm going to do a file save all here, and I'm going to go back into here. All right, and there it's called search term. Now the problem is, again, right now, the way that this is written, it is designed to show everything. We don't want it to show everything. All right. We've got a good start here, but this is not, right now, this is not correct the way that it is. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter here because we have to type quite a bit. And I want to make sure it doesn't go flying off the screen. So I'm going to just move this over like this, just so you can see what I'm going to type in here. What we want to do is we're going to have to write what's known as a lambda query, and we're going to have to tell it that when it comes in here, we only want to find the quote that basically contains that particular name. And if you say, I don't get it, just bear with me for a second, okay? All right. So we're coming in here and we're saying index, we're saying await, we're saying underscore context, quote dot, but now we're going to start saying some stuff. Well, you already know what a lot of this stuff is, even if you think you don't. Dot where, and you'll notice that when I put in dot W, the IntelliSense kicks in and it says, oh, you want a where statement? Yes, we do. Now we're going to put in a lambda expression. All right, we've gone over those a little in other classes. We're going to look at it again in just a minute here. So you can call this whatever you wanted. Since it's a query, I called it Q. All right. And it looks a lot like what we wrote last semester when we wrote our anonymous functions, basically. All right. And we're going to come in here and say Q dot quote author. Notice the IntelliSense again picks that up. Quote author. All right. Don't worry, we're not done yet. When Q dot quote author dot contains. All right. And again, I'm going to see if I can get this all to wrap. I don't know if there is a word wrap on here or not. I don't know. There might be a way to get it to wrap. I don't know what it is, but I'll make sure you got time to key it all in. Okay. All right. So contains. Again, I'm having a hard time reading my own code here. And what does it contain? Well, all right. It contains in here, in parentheses here, this thing, the search term. All right. So let's see if I shrink that down there. You can see it. Hopefully that's big enough where you can read it. And I want to double check to make sure I didn't put any errors in there. All right. So view index, await. I believe that's correct, exactly the way that it is. So I'll give you a second or so to catch up. All right, hopefully you had the time to do that. Good time to do a file save all. All right, I'm going to come and run this program. Make sure I didn't break anything. So quotes should show me my two quotes. And it does. All right, I'm going to go back to the home page. Now I'm going to do an author search and I'm going to try to put in here Rocky. And there's my quote, just my Rocky quote. If I run it again, and the other one was Dory, I believe. All right. It finds that one. Now, what happens if I come in here and I click on this and I put in John Wayne, who's not in here, and I click search? It just gives me that back. Now, again, this can be customized, that would say, you know, there's no term, you know, John Wayne does not exist type of an idea. All right. Now, we're going to do two more things because we're just about finished. First of all, did you all have time to type this in? Is there anybody who still needs this up there? All right. So there's two things that we want to do. The first thing that I want to do is I want to come back over here, and this is only going to work if you can actually see your database here. All right. So here's this, which is underneath this database, this MovieQuotesApp that's right here. I think that should make sense to everybody. All right. I'm going to right mouse click on where it says ASP.NET MovieQuotes, or whatever we call this. I guess was it MovieQuotesApp? Okay. And I'm going to come over there and I'm going to find new query. Okay. I'm going over there and I'm finding new query. And it brings this up. Then I'm going to bring up that file that I sent to you a while ago. You'll have to let me know if you don't have it, can't find it, or whatever. And that is this file right here that's got the 50 quotes in it. So it says insert into quote. Well, that's not the name of the table anymore. We changed this to whatever it was, movie quote or whatever. I want to double check to make sure, because I'll get an error message, or else I'll put it into the wrong one if I do it here. I don't want to do that. So this was called movie quotes right there. So you will have to change yours into insert into movie quotes. All right. So what is this doing? This should be putting about 50 quotes in there. All right. And for every quote, it has a movie name. You notice that Casablanca is repeated a few times. All right. It has a quote, and it has a person who made the quote. So if I highlight Rick Blaine here, and if I keep looking over here, there's Rick Blaine again. Okay. So I'm going to grab all this that I just put in there. Hopefully it's correct, but we'll find out right away if it's not. I'm going to grab this whole thing here, and I'm going to do a Control A, Control C, Control A to highlight it, Control C to copy it. Then I'm going to jump back into my program here, and I'm going to paste that into here. Don't worry that they're red. That shouldn't be a problem. All right. Then I'm going to try to run this quote or this query by clicking here. And if it worked, don't know why that happened, but if it worked down here, someplace I should get a message. Might have to close a few things here, that all those were put in here. In other words, that I just added those. How do I tell? Well, the easiest way to tell is to run the program again. And if I run the program again and I still get just those two, then there was an error in what I just put in. So let's go to quotes. And it didn't like it. So there's something in here it didn't like. I did it before, and of course it worked just fine. But let me double check. Oh, insert into movie quotes with an S right there. I didn't have an S in there. I think it needed an S, but I'm going to try that. So I've got insert into movie quotes. Run this. All right. Still doesn't like it. I'll have to go back and look at that, but unless I've got an error in here, but I didn't think I did. All right. They have to be in single quotes. There has to be a comma at the end of each line, except for the last line, etc. Very similar to the stuff that we did when we were working on databases previously. but there's something in here it doesn't like. So let me look in here one more time. I'm in the right database. I know that. And it should be movie quotes. And that's what I put there. Or did I spell movie wrong? Oh my goodness. Look at that. MOVIE, movie quotes. All right, now let's try to save it. I'm going to run the query. I don't want to click there. I want to run the query by clicking there. All right, incorrect syntax near the word of. Level 15, message 156, line 7. Right there. Doesn't like the word of. Why not? All the ginger and all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine. That looks okay. Incorrect syntax near the keyword of in line 7. If anybody sees anything, please tell me. There's no parenthesis at the end of this line right there. No ending paren. That would do it. Now, it is giving me errors following. So let's see. Maybe there was one there. Yes, there is one there. That isn't it. Funny thing is I ran this before and it worked just fine. So looks okay. Well, let's see if I run this. Did it take the first? I don't know if it took the first 6 ones in there or if it grabs this as a whole unit. So let's see. Nope. Quotes. Nope. It just takes the first 2. So there is an error in this file. What I wanted to show you was having all 50 quotes in here because it makes it a little bit more fun to run the program when you do that. All right, so I'll have to go and try to figure out what the error is in this file, and I will. Now, the only other thing that's left is what I showed you before, and that is, let's hope this works now. So I'm going to come in here, do a file, save all here. I don't want to save that quote though, or that, I don't want to save this. Let me go back into my movie controller, and I'm going to just try this with one routine. That is, I'm going to go right up to the top, and where it's got get movie quotes right here, I'm going to try to put in authorize. All right. Now it is giving me an error. What's supposed to happen when I do this, what happened before when I did this, is show potential fixes. And I want to put that using statement in there. You can manually type this at the top too, right here. I think this was the one we just added. Using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.authorization. All right, I think that's the one that we just put in. Then you should be able to put the word authorize everywhere before you've got a get or before you've got a post. So I'm going to grab these. I'm going to just grab that word authorize and start sticking it in all over the place.
Mr. Scott, mine did work. Should I still put this authorize in mine?
Yeah, what this will do, what this authorize is doing, is it's going to make sure that you're not going to be able to do any CRUD operation unless you're logged in. That's what this is doing. So if yours worked, that's good. Then you've got all the records. All right. Somehow I've got something incorrect in mine. I'll fix it. I'm not worried about that. But everybody should do this. This is known as decorating a method. All right. And what it's saying is, again, in order for us to be able to do this stuff, we will have to be authorized. So I put it in, I believe in all of them. I'm going to save this. I don't know why it's doing that, but it is. Oh, it's doing that because of this. I don't want this up here right now. So close that, don't save. All right. Now when I run this and I go in here and I try to do any operation, so I'm going to do quotes. It tells me I have to log in. All right. Well, what if I try something else? If I do author search, I have to log in. All right. So I've just added authorization. How do I do that? I go into register and I click, and I'm going to just put in my email. You can put in whatever email you want or make one up. It doesn't matter, but remember it. So I've got jpscott@rankin.edu. Now I'm going to put in here on purpose 123. That's all I'm putting in there for a password, and I'm clicking register. Notice what it says. The password must be at least 6 characters long and no more than 100. So I'm going to put in 123123, and I'm going to click register. Now it says these two don't match. So I'm going to come in here and put in 123123 and click register. Now it says passwords must have at least 1 non-alpha character, 1 lowercase, and 1 uppercase. I did that on purpose to show you this. So I'm going to make capital H, little e, LL0, all right, comma. Again, capital H, you can put whatever you want in here, ELL0, comma. And I'm going to try to register with that. And it says I'm registered. So now with this confirmation, you just click on here. That's all you got to do. And it says you're confirmed. But now notice that when I go in here and I try to do quotes, I still get an error, but I can now log in. So when I click log in, there I am. And it shows that I'm logged in here, and it gives me the ability to log out. So what we have just completed here is our first, all right, it is our first ASP.NET application, which both interacts with a database and provides authorization. All right, so I still have an error in my file. Hopefully yours worked. All right, Michael, I think that was you that said yours works, and that's great. So is yours showing all the quotes?
Yeah, I have all of them in there.
Good, good. And I hope the rest of you, like I said, I'll quick look after class, and if I see I put an error in there, I'll fix it. I would never try to give you bad information. All right. But again, even if yours didn't totally work, does anybody have any questions about the process and what we've done? All right. Then what I want to do, it's 2:35, and I'll go for a while yet, but I don't want to go into chapter 4 right now. And the reason I don't want to is I want to give it a whole period. So that's going to be tomorrow. So I'm going to jump ahead because much of the material, virtually all of it in chapter 5, we've already had. And I'm not just saying that. Virtually everything that's in chapter 5, we've already had. Now, I have to warn you that I went and contacted Muroc this morning because when I was in my HTML class, the AWD1000, every time I tried changing pages using Redshelf, which is the software I'm using, it sat there for about 30 seconds to 2 minutes and said loading, 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 which is unacceptable. All right. So I'm going to go into chapter 5, which is on testing and debugging, because you've had virtually all of this information with the exception of a couple things. So because I might forget, for tomorrow, I want you to do 2 things. And I'd really, really appreciate it if you'd do them. Number 1, read chapter 4. It's going to make so much more sense if you read it. Yeah, you got to say that you're a teacher. Yeah, maybe that's true, but it is correct. You're probably going to get lost if you don't read the chapter. Second, on the homework, that you have been given. All right. So on the homework you've been given, which are projects, I think. Yep. And the other one is case study. Well, I wouldn't want it from there, but that's fine. I'll grab it from here. So I'd like you to look through, for this weekend, you've got the stuff done from chapters 1 through 3 only. So look through that and make sure you understand that. Then go back to here, and you've got 3 of them to do from here. To my knowledge, none of these have anything to do with a database. But let's say that you like, I just don't get this tip calculator. It's really not hard, but we can do one of them as a class. I don't care. I'd rather have you do them, but if we have to for one of them, that's fine. All right, so I'm going to jump back into chapter 5 then. So please read chapter 4, look at your homework and your labs and see if there's anything in there that you don't think you can do on your own, and come with that tomorrow. All right, this is a short chapter. It is 18 to 20 pages, how to test an ASP.NET Core web app and how to use the debugger. The only thing that's really new in the debugger section is the trace points, and we'll talk about that when we get to that point. All right, no pun intended there. All right, so you should know this by now. When you test your app, you're trying to break it. The idea, a successful test is breaking your app. That's the goal, because you want to find the errors before you go out and you give them out to somebody. On the other hand, when you're trying to fix the errors, that's debugging. And that's what they talk about here. All right. Now, when you run your program, when you come up and run your program, I have been clicking here. All right. But you can click and you can run your program with debugging, which will show your errors, or you can run it without debugging, which will not show your errors. I tend to always run it with debugging because I'd like to see my errors. If you run it without debugging and there's an error, you'll get more of a generic error page that we'll see in just a few moments. All right. But I just recommend always running it to start debugging, which is that one is the same one that you get when you run it here. Again, it's all a matter of personal preference, and that's what they say in here. The other thing that we have not done is, but you will typically want to do, is remember that when you run this and you come into here, all right, and we look over here, well, that's going to run it. Where is it? Not there. But that when you've got your different things in here that you can bring up and you can check in here for different browsers. All right, I don't remember where it is, but it's in here someplace. You want to make sure that your app that you create looks okay on any browser. It tells you how to do it here. Display the start drop-down menu by clicking on its down arrow. That's what I didn't do, was to click the down arrow here. There. And then you can say browse with, and you'll notice you should get a list. So I've got Chrome, and that's my default. If you want something else as a default, you just click on it and you choose set as default. I've got this. This is not a real browser. This is a simulated one. There's IE. There's Edge. All right. You can go in if you want to. You could add Firefox. You could add Opera. Technically, you probably don't even need IE anymore, because as of now, I think they support IE11 maybe, and that's it. All right, but you might want to come in and add Firefox. You might want to come in and add Opera or something else. That's your call. All right. But again, if you decide at the end of the semester, you know what, I kind of like this, and you apply for a job as an ASP.NET programmer, there's at least a chance if you whatever work you put out there, somebody might try running it in multiple browsers to make sure that at a minimum you made sure it looked consistent among browsers. All right. So that's what they're talking about in there. And if you didn't like my explanation or it wasn't complete enough, there's how to change the default browser. There's how to run it without debugging, which is just the other one that I showed you. That's Control F5 as opposed to F5. You should know by now that when you run an app, I mean, you're in design mode. When you run it, you're basically into an execute mode. And if there's an error, you go into break mode. Those are the three modes that you can be in. All right. This is kind of cool. Notice how new it is. Visual Studio 2022 introduced a new feature called Hot Reload. It allows you that while your program's running, you can make certain changes without having to restart it. All right. I think personally that's cool. Now, it doesn't work for everything. There are certain things that if you want to make changes, you do have to restart it. All right. And I've just been restarting it so far. All right. But I haven't really played with this much, but it's built into it. Now, one thing that they have in here, if you read down in here, they will tell you that there is an option for the hot reload that you can basically set that says, hey, if you have to restart it, here, always rebuild when updates can't be applied. So you can select that, which will say, if you try doing a hot reload and it doesn't take it, it'll automatically stop and restart your program to rebuild it. All right. You can't make changes into your system files. So it says you can't change the underscore layout.cs HTML, the underscore view imports.cs HTML, and the underscore view start. As it says, if you want to change those, since they're system files, you must restart the app. All right. It says, however, Visual Studio won't notify you to try to apply these changes when the app's running. All right. Because it has to be redone. So if you want to do some looking on that, all right, there's the hot reload, and it'll talk a little bit more about it to you. Now, just so this is some of the stuff. So again, notice what it says. If it cannot make the change, this is what comes up. So if you check this, it's a one and done. If you don't check this, then you'll manually every time have to do the build and apply changes. Some people like doing it that way. All right. If you click this, you'll have to only do that once. Then if it finds errors when you're doing the hot reload, it'll automatically rebuild for you. All right. The browser's development tools, you know what? I don't really think we have to talk about these. We use these in AWD1000. I will tell you, I told the students this morning, I got to find it. Let me grab it. From this morning, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. All right, somewhere in here, and you have seen this kind of thing from me before, but I'm going to give this to you guys this afternoon. If you go out to udemy.com, if you need a little refresher on this, you do have to sign up for an account. It doesn't cost you anything, and there is no credit card that's asked for, etc. But if we go out there, all right, if you go out to that URL after you sign up, it's a free 45-minute thing on the basics of Chrome Developer Tools. So if you need any refresher, all right, I asked the class this morning to go through it because they hadn't seen Developer Tools before. But you guys, if you think you need a refresher, you can go out there. And I'll send you that URL today when I send you the email a little bit later. Okay. All right. But how to open it, it's also called the F12 tool. So you know that. It's a little bit different in Safari if for some reason you're using Safari. All right. It says it provides excellent debugging features. Yeah. I mean, it's for your HTML stuff and your CSS, right? Okay. This internal server error page, this is what I told you before. If you run the program without debugging and you get an error, that's what I did before. All right. Now, I wasn't, it had nothing to do with that. It just, I had a big error. But you'll see that kind of thing. A lot of people like to do it this way as a way to start and then run it with debugging and run their program and then, get a system exception to come up. And that's what they'll talk about next in here. All right. That's the exception helper. You've seen this before. All right. You probably had a lot of time to work with that in the C# class. All right. So you can view the details. This one I've never tried. What supposedly this one does, this live share, is it actually kind of starts up the equivalent of almost like a Discord, and it sees if there's anybody else on who might be able to talk to you about what your error is. I've never tried it. I don't know really anything more about it than that. All right, using the debugger, hopefully you remember that if you take your mouse and you put it in here and you click, you get the cyan circle, which means a breakpoint. It has to be on an executable line of code. So you couldn't do it on a blank line. You can't do it on a comment, etc. And what happens is when you set a breakpoint there, the execution stops before that line is run. So if you wanted that line to be run, you'd put the breakpoint on the next line. All right. You can right mouse click on here. You can bring up a whole breakpoint window, for lack of better words. You can set multiple breakpoints. And if you decide you want to, rather than removing them, you can disable them. All right, which means you might want to turn them back on later. And breakpoints remain on after you've saved the program, even if you get back out and come back in again. They're saved. All right. When you're in break mode, hopefully you remember this stuff. You can use the data tips when you put your mouse on something. It'll tell you the current value of it. All right, these are all things that we looked at back in the 1100 class. All right. Control-Alt-Break gets you out. Shift F5, as it says, will stop debugging. Control-Shift F5 will restart. The step into, I like that one a lot because it'll run your program a line at a time. All right. The F10 will do it almost the same way, but if you get a called method, it'll put it in there as a single line. And the step out, as it says, that's especially nice if you are in a loop that's going to be running many, many, many times. You might want to step out to make it get out of there. All right. All that stuff is shown in here too. So you can monitor variables. You can monitor expressions. All right. And you got a regular variable window. That's your locals window. The locals window shows everything that's currently active. So it shows everything in the method you're currently in. The watch window is different. If you put a watch on something, it'll watch it throughout the lifetime of the program. So if you put a watch on a variable, you don't have to be in any routine that's using that variable to see what its current value is. The immediate window, all right, shows you what's currently running, but you can come into that window in the immediate and you can put question marks and run off stuff. So if I wanted to know, for instance, let's just say that I had, well, like it says right here, movie.s1ig, which is Wizard of Oz, I guess. If you put in a question mark with that, you get the results. It'll even do math for you. All right, but if you want more than I'm giving you, it's right here on 195. Trace points is the only thing, like I said, that's new. Notice it's a special type of breakpoint where you can tell it to perform an action when it's encountered. So if those actions include things like you can log out messages to your output window and continue on. You can tell it to stop the program run right there. And that is explained, these trace points, again, it's just a refined breakpoint. Okay? It looks the same as a breakpoint does, but you can bring this up. So again, a lot of times it'll show you more information. And again, as it says, you can write information out. Here's your stuff on how to set a new trace point and basically how you can remove the breakpoints, the trace points. All right. So that's it. As I told you before, boy, I wish that Red Shelf would have worked as nice this morning as it's working now. But I'm going to come back to 55. This is the one that we're going to be looking at tomorrow. I'm again going to be, as much as possible, trying to build it from scratch. It is a movie app, and you'll notice it's very similar to what we just did. So this is listing everything, allowing us to add something, allowing us to edit something that, initial that's in there, and allowing us to delete something. All right, that's their movies app. I made my own. All right. So it's how to develop a data-driven MVC web app. I want to go through this, and it's about, 40 pages. And if it takes us until 3:30, I don't care. I just want it to make sense to you. All right. I know a lot of times I sound like I'm all over the place. I don't ever try to do that. I just guess I do it naturally. All right. But hopefully you got something out of today's class. Hopefully what we did today made sense. As always, if something didn't make sense and you don't want to ask it in front of the class, email me. If something didn't work on yours, feel free to email me, to post it out there, put it out there to GitHub, and I'll be glad to take a look at it. All right. Does anybody have any questions on either the movie app that we did, the MovieQuotes app, or chapter 5? Any questions? All right, then for tomorrow, again, last time, please read chapter 4. At a minimum, look at the page, so when you're going through this, if you don't want to read all the text, at a minimum, bring this page up and look at what's there. And again, for most of these pages, when you bring them up, they'll have some tables, or they'll have some wordage in there. Look at that. And also look at your homework and your labs that are due, all right, Sunday, which is 1, 2, and 3. All right. And if you have any questions, we can do one of them as a class. All right. That's all that I had. All right. Like I said, I don't want to, I threw a hell of a lot at you already. I don't want to go into chapter 4 right now. We will pick that up on tomorrow afternoon. I'll see you at 12:05 then. Have a good day.